Thank you, Cathy. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Council. I would ask members to remain respectful and adhere to the rulings of the Mayor at all times. Can I ask that all persons present turn off any Wi-Fi hotspots on your phones or electrical devices as this interferes with the meeting audio. Finally, I would remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Photography may also take place as long as it does not prejudice the proceedings at this meeting. And the first item on the agenda is the minutes. Does Council agree the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 22nd of April and the annual Council on the 13th of May? Thank you. I will sign that immediately after. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded that if they have interests in respect of any item on this evening's agenda, they should declare them now. Are there any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Agenda item 3. I have been advised that there is no public participation this evening. Agenda item 4. I have some announcements. To receive I'm sad to announce the passing of former Conservative councillor Herbert Chapman, who represented the Flamstead and Markyate ward from May 1995 to 1999, and then the Watling ward from 1999 to 2015, and again 2019 to 2023. He also served as mayor on 2 occasions, for mayoral terms 2000 to 2001 and 2012 and 2013. Before we hold a silence to remember Bert, does anyone wish to share any reflections? Councillor Doris?
Thank you, Mayor. I rise to remember Bert Chapman. He was one of my predecessors in some of the roles that I've had over the years. He was always a fount of knowledge and wisdom, and also good humour. And he was well known for his expression when being questioned in the council chamber. As a long answer, he would say, "I'll be brief," but of course he wasn't. But that was part of his charm. There's a number of legacies over the years that one might put down to. He had the portfolio for environment. He also sat on the committee for the West Herts Crematorium Committee, and although the Hemel Hempstead Crematorium hadn't actually been built at that time, the legacy that he did, or the foundations that he delivered in the committee, will stand in good stead as the Crematorium Committee goes forward in whatever constituency it falls into. He was a great support to me personally. You've summed up an awful lot of what he was saying, and I think that my colleague Jane Timmis will probably want to say something about Bert Chapman in Watling and Flamstead. So I will leave it there, but we have fond memories of Bert and Shirley. And of course, one of the things that he loved doing was going on holiday. It never interfered with his council work, may I add, but he loved his holidays, whether they be cruises or abroad, and he was always incredibly dapper, and you would see him in his fawn suit. And as I say, Jane Timmis will probably talk about his relationship within Markyate and Flamstead. So I'm going to leave it there, but rest in peace, Bert.
Thank you, Councillor Doris. We have Councillor Anderson next.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief as well. Bert was a colleague for 24 years in the end. When I first started, he was the chair of the Environment Committee, and he was a fabulous mentor. And he also had a very, very brilliant way of dealing with tense situations. He could be very calm and act as a great mediator. He served, I don't need to stray on the comments of others, but he represented the borough as mayor twice, including one infamous appearance on the Big Breakfast show that some members may remember that unfortunately ended up in the tabloid press. But fortunately, his family, he and his family found it very funny because it was actually brought up at his funeral. So I'm not actually besmirching his name in any way. Bert was an absolutely fabulous colleague, and I mourn him as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did know Bert Chapman, but not through particularly a role here at Dacorum Borough Council, but in his role as a councillor when I was a councillor on Great Gaddesden Parish Council and chair of that council, which I did from 2007 to 2015, which absolutely was the time that Bert used to come to those meetings, and he attended them very regularly. He was always really engaged, and he always said at the end of every time there was an issue, I'll take that away, and he would take it away. We didn't always hear back, but he was always very pleased to take our business back up to Dacorum Borough Council. He was also incredibly loyal to Markyate, where he lived. And every time there was a vacancy on the Markyate Parish Council, Bert was always really happy to volunteer to go on that parish council. And in those days, there was an arrangement between those three councils, Markyate, Flampstead and Great Gaddesden, through Neighbourhood Action, which some of you may remember on the other side of the chamber. And we worked quite closely together on that. So yes, and obviously a really dedicated public servant, really, as I said, very loyal to his community. And I attended his funeral. It was clear that he was also, a very, strong family man. So I know a great loss to his community, a great loss to his family. And on behalf of Liberal Democrats, I wish that he rests in peace.
Thank you. I'd just like to reflect on Bert, the man with a sense of humour. Back in 2012, I just started a new scout troop, and at the beginning of the year, I decided to do something really wild and invested all my scouts on the high ropes at the XC. One of them was ill that night, so couldn't come along. So I promised him he'd have something equally exciting to do. So come May, when Bert was the mayor, we had a big scouting event at Fazel's Wood, and I had Bert hanging from the top of the Abseil Tower in a suit and his mayoral chains, and I have a photo to prove it. While we invested this scout, there's a photo of the three of us, and then he abseiled down in his full chains.
Councillor Simmis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't got a lot to add to what everybody else has said, other than the fact that I knew Bert very well. I know he served for 28 years, which is a fantastic long time, and shows great dedication. I don't think it's actually the record, but it's close. He represented Watling Ward, which really is part of three parts of three main villages, but Markyate, where he lived, was Markyate, shall we say, and everybody knew him, and he knew everybody in Markyate. He wrote all the newsletters every month. All the villages had their own newsletters. He wrote in those every single month. And he also sat on the parish council, at Markyate Parish Council. In fact, until very close to the time that he died. He wasn't very well in the last couple of years before he died, but he was there still on Markyate Parish Council, still giving towards the community. So I think he will be really very much missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please ask you all to stand, and we will now hold a minute's silence. Thank you, everyone. Right. As is the tradition, as Mayor, I just want to give you an update on some of the things that I've been doing. Since being inaugurated, I've attended something like 18 events. I won't regale you with all of them. I'll just pick out some of the more important ones that we've done. My first event was on the 15th of May, and it was a meeting held in the grounds of St. Albans Cathedral. And it was along the lines of the hope not hate sense. It had been called at a week's notice by the Chief Constable in response to the recent multiple religious and race crimes. It had been led by the Lord Lieutenant with speakers from all faiths and the police and fire and rescue service. And as might be expected, it was well attended by a host of the deputy lieutenants as well. I'd like to mention that I've been to Ashton School twice, and on Friday the 10th, it received an award for its travel plan, which I was told is the first in the borough. In June, Decorum Den's Business Grant Fund made its awards, and I was supporting Councillor England in making the grants. This year, the venue was here in West Herts College, and it looks very impressive. It's my first visit inside the building. At the end of June, on the 20th, Councillor Symington and I attended the open day at the fire station. And it's good to see lots of people enjoying the experience. Little boys on hoses playing with water. We were also given a tour of the upgraded accommodation, single rooms to de-stress after a call-out. We raised the flag at the Wall Garden and enjoyed ourselves on the Armed Forces Day at the well-attended event in Gagebridge Park. The weather was pretty hot, and spectators and I were impressed by the RAF flypast at around 1 p.m. Something I haven't done before, Hertfordshire Scouts annual AGM at the Well End Activity Centre. The guests were seated under cover, but midway the AGM was enlivened by a steady downpour. A work party showed excellent improvisation, quickly relocated the presiding officers, who were at risk of a good soaking at their long table. They finished the proceedings under cover. Among other awards, we were impressed by a volunteer receiving a 45-year long service award, which I think is pretty impressive. And incidentally, at the end of May, I went to the Puffins Club, which is celebrating its 45th anniversary. Very good achievement, that. And on the 24th of June, I went to the Hackrow Annual Achievements Award. Now, this is recognizing the impressive work by the group in supporting the rehabilitation of substance abusers and former prisoners. The event was at Oaklands College, and the principal took opportunity to promote its work at Bovingdon Prison in training inmates for apprenticeships. It's very good work there. More locally, last week, I was invited to Holtsmere School in Woodhall Farm, where I've been twice, in fact. Last week it celebrated its 50th anniversary, and I met its first head, who's been retired now for quite a long time and lives on the south coast. It's notable that they buried a time capsule to hopefully be opened in another 50 years. And as a matter of interest, I've also been invited to Gadsden Row School because they will be celebrating their 150th anniversary later on in September. Last Friday, the Deputy Mayor and I had an enjoyable interlude where we attended and opened the St. Mary's Beer Fest. Regrettably, I had another engagement that afternoon, but I left Councillor Johnson to enjoy himself. And on the 18th of July, last Saturday, the county chairman held afternoon tea at Nebworth for volunteers across the county. And there was an impressive speaker from North Herts on the work they are doing to combat loneliness, and made an appeal for more trustees to support the sector. So, if you've got any spare time, please think in terms of becoming a trustee to some of these bodies. Thank you. If I could now ask Stefania, do you have any announcements as Deputy Chief Executive?
Thank you, Chair. A by-election took place on Thursday, the 11th of June 2026, to fill a vacancy in Apsley and Cornhill Hall ward. Hugo Hardy of the Liberal Democrat Party was elected. I'm sure you all join me in welcoming to Dacorum.
Leaders to give any apologies for absence on behalf of their groups.
I'm giving apologies on behalf of Councillor Robin Bromham and Councillor Jonathan Gale.
Apologies from Councillor Adeleke, Elliott, White, Moe and Walker.
No apologies on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you. Leila?
We've received apologies from Councillors Barry Mears, Posey, Wilkie and Tyndall.
Now moving on to agenda item 5. I draw your attention to the portfolio holder updates as published with the agenda. I will invite questions against each update in turn. First, though, I will ask Councillor Sally Smeaton if she has a verbal update to give as leader of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have an update. Councillors, members of the public, you all have seen last week that we secured the local government reorganisation outcome that our council here at Dacorum Borough Council supported. And this is giving us a once-in-a-generation opportunity to redesign local government so it is simpler, more accountable and fit for the future. This presents a significant chance to bring services together under one organisation, and this in turn will make it clearer for residents to understand who delivers services, how decisions are made, and how public money is invested to support local communities. Change of this scale naturally brings questions, but my commitment is clear, that every decision we take will be guided by what delivers the best services for our residents. Between now and April 2028, we will work tirelessly with partners and residents to build a new council that is ready from day one. As more information on what these changes look like in the future are announced, we will be sure to update you all. And I know, as a final point, that you will also welcome the news that we've had, that it's been confirmed that the new authority will be called West Herts. Through our £1.4 million Stronger Futures programme, we're improving neighbourhoods, strengthening communities and creating new opportunities across the borough. This summer, families will benefit from a fantastic programme of free events, building on the success of Armed Forces Day, while additional CCTV cameras, including a mobile unit, will help tackle antisocial behaviour and fly tipping to make our neighbourhoods safe. These are practical, visible improvements that demonstrate our commitment to delivering real benefits. It's about building confidence in Dacorum's future. Staying with the theme of summer and making the most of our outdoor spaces, I'm delighted that Gadebridge Park was one of the 6 parks across Dacorum to retain the green flag status this year. We are fortunate to have such outstanding green spaces on our doorstep, and this recognition reflects the dedication of our staff, volunteers, local organisations and community groups who work tirelessly to maintain and enhance them for everyone to enjoy. Alongside this, we continue to invest in Dacorum's cultural future. Whilst our bid for Town of Culture was not successful, just being in the mix of a competition with more than 400 applicants demonstrates both our ambition and the strength of our arts and cultural offer. It showcases our commitment to putting Hemel Hempstead and Dacorum on the map and delivering the vision that is set out in our arts and culture strategy. And it's also worth noting at this point that although we did not submit the application ourselves, Tring Town Council had also submitted an application for Tring to be Town of Culture. Again, another jewel in our crown across in Dacorum. So, from supporting community organisations and creating opportunities for young people to improve local spaces and helping those who need it most, we're investing in stronger, more connected communities. As we shape the future of local government, we are also shaping a borough where everyone, no matter their background, has the opportunity to thrive. I'm excited about what lies ahead, and I look forward to working with our residents, partners and communities to build an even stronger immediate investment in our communities.
Councillor Harden, question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the leader may be aware, I recently carried out a resident survey asking for their views on the future of the Bury. When asked what the council should prioritise in its future plans for the Bury, 74% of respondents identified it as a heritage visitor destination. Almost half also supported its use as a community space, while over 40% favoured arts and cultural space. Will the leader honour the views of our residents and restore this precious historical asset and bring it into use as a majority of residents wish to see?
Press the button. You'll be aware that the Dacorum Heritage Trust has contacted the council with a proposal which is being given consideration to as part of the strategic asset review. We welcome all community organisations putting in a bid or expressions of interest, not just the one that's already done so, and look forward to receiving many more expressions of interest to do just what you've suggested in the coming months and years.
Thank you. Just briefly on that one alone, they're waiting for a response from the council, so that would be appreciated. But my second question is, could the leader of the council confirm that the Bury will not be sold off for housing, as has happened with another historical site of Heath Barn?
Thank you. I did reply to Dacorum Heritage Trust, so it's incorrect to say that the council hasn't responded. I did reply.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I think that I think was a supplementary question. I think you've asked another one in addition to that.
Just asking whether the Bury is going to be sold off for housing, like has happened with Heath Barns.
Firstly, Heath Barns has not been sold off for housing. So I just need to correct the record on that. Secondly, as I've explained in my first answer, Dacorum Heritage Trust has submitted an expression of interest. We are looking for expressions of interest from other community groups and other stakeholders whilst we review, under the Strategic Asset Review programme, what we do with this site, the Bury, and the other strategic asset sites across the borough, which include Berkhamsted Civic Centre and Victoria Hall, Zintring.
Thank you.
Councillor Anderson next.
Thank you, Mayor. On the naming of the new authorities, thank you, Councillor Symington, for confirming that Councillor Madden's wish that the North be dropped has been met. But I have to say that the government announcement last week did specifically say North West, so I'm a little puzzled about what's happening with that. The other thing is, if we're being changed from North West to West, what's happening with South West, because you have a real opportunity for not only South West to be confused with a parliamentary constituency, but also to be confused with West. So could the leader come back on that, please?
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. I think everyone's stretching the single question today, but I'll take it in good faith that you're looking for details about naming. Yes, thank you, Councillor Madden, for your suggestion. Yes, obviously you weren't the only person to point out that we are not actually in North Herts at all. So as the leader of Dacorum Borough Council and in conjunction with the agreement with the leader of St Albans Council, proposed at the Herts Leaders Group meeting some time ago, and just before, well, not some time ago, last month, and before we had to submit a response to the structural changes order, that our particular unitary authority, if it was at this stage we didn't know, if it was to be the 4 unitary option, would only be called West Herts. I say only, it would be called West Herts as opposed to North West Herts. And that was agreed by all the leaders and was, as I said, submitted as part of a further questions that government MHCLG had asked whilst putting together the structural changes order. In terms of the announcement that the government made last Thursday, you'll be aware that there were 14 authorities that were announced on that day. It was very clear from the briefing that the minister was struggling to stay on top of her brief, and despite all the notes, and they are working at pace, and this is obviously a government that was also facing its own challenges in terms of its ministerial team and going through its own leadership challenges. So notwithstanding that, the explanation that we were given was that the wording, the naming and other details were all taken from the original submission that we put in November of last year, and therefore did not take account of what we'd submitted just the month before. The name change for West Herts also is accompanied by a name change in the east. So the Eastern Unitary is not being called Eastern, it is going to be called Broxbourne. I hope I've got this the right round. Maybe it's East Herts. No, it must be Broxbourne and East Herts. It wouldn't work otherwise. Broxbourne and East Herts. The South West Herts, the group, the three councils in that, did not ask for that name to be changed. It's obviously up to them whether they feel there's a confusion with a parliamentary constituency. And they're obviously welcome to put forward that. But the other thing I need to be really clear about is that the name West Herts or any of these other names are still only temporary names. The successor authority, and those elected to it, will make the final decision as to what the name will be of that authority going forward. So this is effectively a placeholder, but I think that it is right that that placeholder name is West Herts and represents where we are geographically. It's obviously for others in other local authorities to decide what's appropriate for them. My understanding is that the leaders of Hertsmere, Watford and Three Rivers were happy with the South West Herts name for the time being. Does that answer the several questions that I've had from you, Councillor Anderson?
Yes and no, but I'll leave it. Thank you, Mayor.
And you're not going to have a supplementary?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought Councillor Simmons was trying to time me out there. That was a very comprehensive answer to a simple question. Carrying on with the theme of local government reorganisation and the fact that I spent many years sitting where she is fighting reorganisation and alongside Sharon, now Baroness Taylor, who's now turned poacher turned gamekeeper in terms of fighting reorganisation for many years. I am sad that Hertfordshire is going, and I am sad, obviously, having invested so many years here, that Dacorum will eventually go, but hey-ho, we move on to new and bigger things. My question is, given that it feels like it's some time off, but we know that, elections in May 2027 and taking up the cudgel of running those big services in April 2028 is not actually that far away, given the massive amount of work that needs to be done between now and then. Now that we have the outcome of the structure, i.e. a merger between Dacorum and St Albans, ordinarily you would bring together some joint committee at the point where the structural change order is passed in Parliament. We know that's not going to be till next March, which is significantly close to the May elections. Is she aware of or able to update us at what arrangements will now be put in place, I suspect, hopefully with some haste, where joint working between ourselves and St Albans can commence in order to begin to shape the future of services across that new district, that new unitary? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. I didn't know whether you were going to time yourself out or leave me so little time that I can barely answer the question. The answer to your question is, sorry, I've made a few notes. So yes, there is a massive amount of work to be done before April 2028, which is vesting day. So I absolutely agree with that. The structural changes order, as you've said, we're expecting to come into effect in March. The Herts Leaders Group met today in Stevenage at the County Council offices, and it was agreed then, and had actually previously been agreed, that we will be setting up voluntary committees ahead of that. And those have been determined by, as I said, by submissions to, I don't know if you've seen them, think the document's being shared, but if it hasn't, I will share it. Submissions again to MHCLG, and in West Herts, which is the simplest of all of them because we are 2 local authorities that without any boundary changes, there will be a committee of 8 that will be comprised of 4 from the County Council, 2 from St Albans and 2 from Dacorum. And that is matched across the other local authorities, but where there are 3 local authorities, obviously the numbers are 2, 2, 2 and 6 from the County Council. So the balance in every single case is the County Council have 50% of the seats and the other 50% of the seats come from the 2 local authorities, from the 2 or 3 local authorities. And we are aiming to get those set up in September or October. But they have limited, I've timed out anyway. I'll tell you about the powers they have another time.
You've timed out, well done. Thank you. Right. Next, to the corporate and commercial services portfolio. I will take the report as read and invite any questions to Councillor Allen on his update. We've got Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my question refers to the Springfield Sports Pavilion in Springfield, otherwise known as the Warner's End Valley, or more locally known as the Dip. Then the permanent replacement facility to replace the one that was burnt down, I understand will be costing £1.1 million. Why is it going to cost so much when those involved with cricket have told me that it is not typical for a local cricket pavilion to cost so much?
The £1 million figure is a like-for-like replacement figure that has been done by the structural engineers. That does not mean that we have to replace it in the same terms. But that is the figure that has been given for a like-for-like replacement. The costs of buildings have increased enormously in recent years. We're all aware of how building materials have increased in cost through COVID and since. And so, yes, it is an eye-watering figure, but I'm sure that the team is working on more cost-effective solutions than that £1 million figure.
Councillor Guest, do you have a supplementary?
I do indeed. And how can it be assured that the replacement sports pavilion does not compete with the Gadebridge Community Centre and put it at risk, but meets the specific need of providing a sports pavilion in the locality?
So it is not intended at all that the cricket pavilion, so it's not a cricket pavilion, it's a sports pavilion. So that the sports pavilion competes with any community centre. It is not a community centre, it is a sports facility, and as such it will be redeveloped as a sports facility. However, it would be lacking in foresight if we didn't redevelop the building in such a way that was going to be more flexible in meeting the needs of the community so that it isn't simply there for delivering football and cricket as currently, and could be used by other sporting activities, who knows what, yoga, outside gyms, etc., etc. So I think there's been a bit of confusion here. There is no intention of changing the use of the facility, simply being more flexible in how it is designed so that it can serve the community in multiple ways, not simply the delivery of cricket and football.
Right. Councillor Mitchell.
Despite it not being in Councillor Guest's ward, she actually has asked a question that I was going to ask about the facility in my own ward. So thank you, Councillor Guest, for preempting me.
Councillor Timmis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is the portfolio holder aware that the final injunction hearing was heard today at the Royal Courts of Justice, and the decision is going to be declared on Friday at about 10:30, apparently?
I hadn't heard that, but I'm sure the legal department have this all in hand, and we await to hear good news on this so that the residents of that corner of the borough can be well protected against arbitrary and unpermitted development.
Councillor Timmins, do you have a supplementary?
No.
Thank you. If there are no more questions for Councillor Allen, we'll move on to the environment portfolio. As Councillor Bromham has sent his apologies and is unable to be with us this evening, I will take the report as read and ask that if members have any questions arising from the report, please raise them now. The questions will be forwarded to Councillor Bromham for a written response, which will be logged in the action tracker, with any responses circulated to all members and published under the agenda item business from the previous meeting when we next meet.
Today I met with Officer Steve Rowell regarding the proposed plans for a sang in Gadebridge Park. And he advised me that there isn't funding for the play park to be refurbished below Woodview. I'd like to understand if we can obtain funding from SIL funds for that to happen. Thank you.
Councillor Timmins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask the portfolio holder, or for you to let him know, a question about the litter bin review, in particular about the removal of dog waste bins, as we know them, the red bins, at the moment. We have been given very little information about this before the decision has apparently already been made. And in particular, the replacement of the current general bin, which is black and gold, looks very smart, but not appropriate, I would say, on the end of a rural footpath. And so I'd just like to know what the intention is as far as those bins are concerned, not the bins in the big parks or in the village or town centres. Thank you, that's my question.
Right, that's Councillor Link.
Thank you. I just had some really positive feedback from residents I bumped into today, and I wanted to share that for Councillor Bromham. I know he's not here. I just want to read out what the residents said. We had particular praise for Chris Connolly and his team from Clean, Safe and Green. They'd cleared up an area. It's slightly out of my ward, but I did drive and have a look, and I took a couple of pictures.
Sorry, are we supposed to be could I just check, please, if we're just supposed to be questions and not statements?
It is a question, thank you.
Just for clarification. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, I'm leading to the question. So I just wanted to briefly, is that okay, Mr Mayor? The feedback was amazing, and I just wanted to share that positive praise. And the resident asked me what the best possible way to share feedback in the future was. And I said, well, I'd read it out tonight, but I'd just like to leave that for Councillor Bromham to come back to me. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, we'll move on. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell, there's not time now. Are we out of time, or is there time? No. I just wanted to ask if anything's been put in place to work on the baby memorial in Gadebridge Park, which I believe was quite neglected. And I do understand that's actually in your ward, isn't it, that volunteers were tending to it, but for whatever reason, it wasn't in an acceptable state now.
Okay, thank you. We've logged it. Thank you. No further questions for Councillor Bromham? We'll move on. The police portfolio. I'll take the report as read and invite any questions to Councillor England on his update. Good. Councillor England. We've got Councillor Anderson asking a question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There's something else I'm confused about. Through the scrutiny committee discussions and the subsequent cabinet meeting, members have all been advised that the council has to start preparing a new local plan on top of the new one that we're trying to get approved at the moment. And that there was no guidance given for authorities such as yourselves who were at advanced stage in getting the new plan passed. However, subsequently having attended national briefings, I've been advised that authorities have until the end of this year to get plans approved under the old system, so that the March legislation did not occur. Does the portfolio understand that see the inconsistency in that advice? And could you come back, comment on that inconsistency?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Yes, so obviously Council knows that we're at an advanced stage in progressing our local plan, something which has been a real priority of this administration. We are at the stage where we've had the hearings. We are now waiting for the inspectors to come to their decision, and they've written to us and asked us for yet another piece of information, which we are in the process of working on. But we are in their hands. We have had meetings with MHCLG, and we have made the point that not only are we working really hard to try and deliver a local plan, which is what they want us to do, but also it will be very difficult to work on two plans at the same time. Difficult for officers. Not only that, it will be difficult for residents, because residents will say, how many versions of the NPPF have we got? We talked about that last time we were here. How many versions of the local plan have we got? And just utter confusion. So from my point of view, we are doing everything we can to move things along in such a way that we manage local development on a local basis. And despite that, we are finding that it's a little bit hard to get the clear information that we need from government. Councillor Symington has reflected on how much change there is going on in Whitehall right now, and so I guess we have to be a little bit tolerant in the very, very short term. But I'm sure that there are lots of ministers and civil servants cancelling their holidays as we speak, and getting about the business of telling Dacorum what we need to know.
Councillor Anderson, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mayor, when I can phrase it correctly. I don't think that really addresses the dichotomy here, because we're getting some advice telling us we've got to do another new local plan, and we've got other advice, existing advice, saying we don't. So I'm wondering, why is this council trying to do another local plan with higher house building targets, when we were promised if we got to move on with the one, we'd actually be discounted at 30% uplift, and the latest information is it's going even higher. I don't understand why we're doing that work when we've got advice telling us we've got until the end of the year to get the one that approved. And given how far advanced we are in the stage, we stand in the process, we stand a chance of getting approved. So I can't understand why is the council doing another local plan with higher targets?
Okay, so there seems to be some confusion. I'm not sure whether it's Councillor Anderson who's confused. I think it might be, but I want to be respectful. We are very, very focused on the draft local plan that we have been building since 2023. Full stop. We are very focused on that. We want to finish that local plan. That local plan is based on a number which, as you say, is a lot lower than the number that we could have been working towards right now. I have mixed feelings about that, because I recognise, as I think we all do, that there is a housing crisis and we need to build houses. But there is also a local democracy situation which has been exercised at this council recently quite a lot, and I think we all know what we're talking about there. So on the one hand, we want to build houses, we do. That's why we progressed our local plan to the point we have. There is very little more that we can do to speed that up. The people who can speed that up is the planning inspectors. So if they are watching, I would like to urge them to help us to get on with building houses, because we all want to do that. In relation to what the government is saying about local plans going forwards, there is a new plan, there is a new process for local plans which is coming forward. And as I said in my first answer, we are getting a bit of a mixed message at the moment, and we are in a situation where we really do need to start working on that new plan, which government is telling us we must do, but we are arguing actively to government on behalf of all our residents and with some sympathy for our officers too, that we should be allowed time to finish our local plan, which we are trying to do. Everybody wins. We get more houses built more quickly, we get more affordable housing, and we move on. We absolutely recognise, and I don't think it should be a secret, that the way that government housing targets are going, that number is going up and up and up. And it's the reason why we sought to get our local plan in, because we want to get that mortgage fixed rate, to use an analogy. We want to get that. And we are really, really close to getting it because of all the effort that's been put in by the fantastic work that was done by the portfolio holder before me and everything along those lines. So we worked really hard. I'm not very popular in some parts of the borough because we've worked really hard to get on with this kind of thing, but it's the right thing to do, and we will carry on. And so to be really clear, we are working on this local plan. We really need government to help us to get it over the line. I hope they will. We will do everything in our part to make sure that happens as quickly as possible. And come what may, when we're asked to do another local plan, of course we will, because we're a council, not a government, and a government can tell a council what to do.
Thank you. I think I've got Councillor Mitchell.
May I request, Mayor, that I could remain seated because of a health issue that I have with my foot. Thank you very much. Would the portfolio holder join with me in congratulating the Old Town Hall for winning the accolade of the Muddy Stilettos Award?
Hear, hear. I think we can all unite on that. We love our Old Town Hall. The work that Stuart is doing there is absolutely exemplary. He deserves a massive round of applause from all of us. If we didn't have time on the clock, we could do that now, but we probably better not. All I can say is that I wish him every success with an encore. I hope that his name will be up in lights for many, many years. And I think it's really great that we've got the Old Town Hall. I really, really wish that we had a bigger theatre in this town. But these are very difficult things to do. One of the reasons why this administration worked so hard to develop with the public an arts and culture strategy was because we recognise that it's not as simple as saying, why can't we just rebuild the pavilion? We need to establish a strong bedrock for arts and culture in this borough. It's one of the reasons why this administration hired somebody who knew how to do this when we arrived in office. It's absolutely unbelievable there wasn't anybody who already knew how to do that, and probably explains why the pavilion didn't get rebuilt.
Thank you.
I'm afraid, Councillor Anderson, I've advised, no, you've had your go.
No, I had a new question, but I waited until the end of the queue.
A new question? You've got 42 seconds.
I have 42 seconds, in which case would the portfolio holder be willing to provide a written reply by tomorrow as to whether he can give the council any sort of indication as to how the council is going to respond to the local planning inspectors' requests, nay demands, with respect to the Marshcroft Farm development, which has been subject to a very explicit 6-page letter. And if the portfolio holder could give us some early indications of how the council is going to react to that, then that would be very helpful. Thank you, Mayor.
Can you do 10 seconds?
I will do my best. In the fine tradition of officers, we are waiting for the proper advice from KC. If it comes in, then I will be able to give an answer.
Thank you. Next, to the People and Transformation Climate and Ecological Emergency Portfolio. I'll take the report as read and invite any questions to Councillor Smith-Wright on her update. Councillor Doris? No, Councillor England, do you want to turn your light out? Thank you. Councillor Doris.
Thank you, Mayor. Would the portfolio join with me in welcoming the reduction in the call waiting time for residents from 18 minutes down to 7 minutes 33 seconds, which is very good. But could you also, sorry, that's my preamble, the question.
The Doris.
Yes. It's a game we play and have done for years.
Can we have the question?
Yes, thank you.
Well then.
Mayor? May I finish? May I continue?
Thank you very much, Councillor Dewis.
Yeah.
I agree that the waiting times have improved, and I've been able to go back to 2021, as we only have 5 years of data. However, it is clear that the call centre has been consistently better since the change in political leadership in May 2023. In saying that, wait times since February 2026 have been the highest in the past 5 years. I do admit that. And I note that waiting times, as you have said, have been reduced and are back to agreed performance levels.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do. What actions are you going to take to continue the reduction in the call waiting times to a much more reasonable level for our residents? And I'd like some detailed examples, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dewis. Customer Services has continued to improve residents' access to support by average call waiting times in June by 5.5 minutes compared with May. This means residents are getting through to the council more quickly and receiving timely help with the services they rely on. This is what we're doing. Targeted staff training has been put in place to better manage services with higher call volumes, and day-to-day email management has been adjusted so that more resource can be prioritised for answering calls when demand is highest. So joint working between customer services, benefits and housing is helping residents provide evidence through digital channels, making it easier and quicker for cases to be processed. This supports more efficient decision-making and helps residents receive the right advice, support or outcome without unnecessary delay. And I hope very much this will continue. Thank you.
Councillor Paradell.
Thank you, Mayor. The portfolio holders report notes that sickness absence levels have gone up under her watch and remain higher than this point last year, but it doesn't say how much they've gone up by. So could the portfolio holder confirm how much higher sickness absence levels are among staff?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Paradell. Yes, sickness has been an issue. I do not know the reasons why. There is a thorough survey that's been carried out by the wellbeing team, and they are actually looking at this, trying to find trends. So it is an action that is actually happening, and we've yet to find the response as to why that is the case. But I will be able to report. In between now and then, I will send you that report. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, actually. You've answered my second question, but not my first one. The question I asked was how much higher are they than last year?
Can I give you a written answer?
Right. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask a question relating to climate and ecological emergency programme, in particular the Decorum Climate Action Network. I notice that the annual event will be taking place next week, but it appears to be entirely in Hemel Hempstead. So can I ask Can you reassure residents in our towns and villages that this isn't just a Hemel-focused initiative, and explain how communities across the whole borough will benefit? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Yes, Decorum Can is genuinely a borough-wide network that works together irrespective of geographical areas. So our upcoming event at Turnover a New Leaf in the Old Town Hall is a new approach, which includes cooperation and the co-design and the whole network, including groups from outside Hemel Hempstead. So we have, we've got Tring in Bloom, Sustainable Tring, Eco Burco and Local Repair Cafe all involved. And it's a location which really allows us direct use of the proximity of Gadebridge Park, which we're using, giving us a unique opportunity to highlight the major restoration we did in Gadebridge Park and the globally rare chalk stream. So our programme is across the borough. It's not just Hemel Hempstead. It will also support existing established local groups in Hemel Hempstead as well as the villages and elsewhere. So, and earlier this year we did engage all the communities from DCAN to survey them, and really based on that partner feedback from them, we will be making sure that we do 3 to 4 week promotional time for any major announcements borough-wide. There'll be a central shared calendar so groups in Tring and Berkhamsted and rural areas can promote their own events across our entire borough. So our commitment to all parts of the borough is also reflected in our funding distribution. The Green Community Grants, for instance, are open and inclusive to all areas, and Decorum Can has lots planned, including several practical workshops coming up. And this is all to work in partnership with local network members, making climate action more accessible. And as we move to the new authority with a passionately sustainable partner, which is exciting, it's also a great time to combine our existing networks. So that will really ensure, as we go forward, that climate and nature action is available to everybody.
Councillor Patterson, do you have a supplementary? No? Right, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the portfolio holder report, it makes reference to filming going from strength to strength. My understanding is that income from filming has been declining over the last couple of years. How do those two things match up?
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Can I get back to you on that? Because I don't really actually know the answer. I know how successful it is, but I will follow that up with the filming team, if that's all right with you.
Councillor Williams, do you have a supplementary? Right. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that we talk about social media and the use by the council, and I have seen some of those videos. I'd like to know which social media platforms we're on to ensure that we reach the majority of our residents. I don't believe we have a Blue Sky account, and whether or not the portfolio holder would be willing to consider that.
Thank you so much. Yes, we have had discussions about social media platforms. Ones like X, we keep purely for announcements. Blue Sky is something certainly we'd like to look at. But yes, I mean, I'm certainly happy to talk to officers about expanding our social network activity. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do have a supplementary. Given the owner of X and his attitude to inclusion, could we consider withdrawing our account from X in order to represent all of our constituents?
Thank you. Yes, I will take that back. I mean, we all still feel quite strongly about it, and we don't do any posting on that, but we will certainly look at it. Thank you.
Councillor Hannell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will the portfolio holder join with me in congratulating Dacorum Borough Council in securing significant funding from this Labour government for the Warm Homes Grant, lifting low-income properties, many in my constituency, to EPC Band C?
It isn't actually in my portfolio, but I will Yes, it is. We do have a substantial grant. This is actually, I think, in Simi's portfolio. That's funny.
Right. Thank you. Finally, to the Housing and Property Services portfolio. I will take the report as read and invite any questions to Councillor Diani for her update. Councillor Hannell, would you like to pose the first question?
Can we all pretend I didn't stand up just a minute ago? Will this portfolio holder join with me in congratulating Dacorum Borough Council in securing significant funding from our Labour government Warm Homes Grant, lifting low-income properties, many in my constituency, to EPC Band C level?
Thank you, Councillor Hennell. And yes, we really appreciate Indecorum for having the funding from government. So thank you for bringing this up. And I hope people take advantage and apply for the funding as much as they can. And I think we should all try to promote as much we can to make sure people are aware of this funding. Thank you.
And do you have a supplementary, Councillor Hannell?
I don't, but I do think that the portfolio holder did get wind of the fact that I was going to ask that question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mitchell.
Please forgive me for remaining seated. Is the portfolio holder aware of the significant ASB issues in Gaybridge, youth ASB issues in particular, including breaking into shops, empty buildings, various forms of vandalism, significant numbers of e-bikes being ridden by youths dressed in black, wearing black balaclavas, and scooters throughout the Rossgate shopping centre, intimidating elderly and vulnerable residents, as well as the fires that have recently been set alight in the fields and woodlands surrounding Gaybridge on Tuesday night, or Monday night rather. We had one in the field at the Polhanger Lane site. The fire service have had to attend on several occasions, and residents are very fearful because it's so close to homes, to their homes, and it's become extremely worrying.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Yes, Council is aware of the antisocial behaviour issues in Gaybridge Ward. And I sympathise with the ongoing concerns. It's a top priority of the administration, council, and myself to provide the community safety and alleviate the concerns of our resident where it's reported to us. As you can understand, it's a multi-partner work. Dacorum is responsible to tackle antisocial behaviours where we have involvement of our resident to do with the housing, whereas we still work very closely with police, with fire services to make sure that we can provide evidence and do more patrolling in the area, making sure we bring up fundings where we have repeated issues. We've already worked in several areas in Dacorum when it comes to antisocial behaviour, bigger projects. There is a Stronger Future project due to commence in September in Gaybridge area, again, to tackle the amount of antisocial behaviour reports we're receiving. Just to rest you assured, we also are focusing on hotspot CCTV enhancement. So that work is in progress, and I think that's where we can then work closely with police and provide evidence where we can. Just want to tell you that it's a work where we have to take a joint-up approach. It's again to do with the youth. And again, it's a very small number of youth where we are facing difficulties to deal with. Majority of time, we have very respectful youth in Dacorum, and our priority is to ensure we educate them. We try to bring them into the right path and take any appropriate action. But we are working, and there are several parts we are still to take. We are monitoring the incident on a regular basis and engaging with residents and community where we can. We're also reviewing if we can do further preventative work to stop these incidents happening. We're yet to hear from the fire rescue team about the fire you mentioned, but hopefully I would get to know this soon, so I've raised your concern already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do. I just thank you for all of that. That's fantastic, and hope we can work collaboratively together on these issues. But I'd just like to know if there's anything that we can do to reinstate a permanent youth service in Gadebridge. I appreciate that the funding comes from county, but it's been many years now that Gadebridge doesn't have one, and I feel that this is now a result of that, the behaviours that we're seeing now, which is about a gang of 30 youths that are hanging out together in the streets.
Thank you again. So when it comes to funding youth services, as you yourself mentioned, it's a piece of county work. Again, they are one of our partners, and we would support making those grant application where we can. But I guess, as we all know, we're going into the restructuring, and it's very likely that this work would be post new authorities. The mic stopped working. But yeah, this is something based on the requirement. I strongly feel that we should be making further requests to county to bring some funding forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Several years ago, lots of council-owned houses were re-roofed and clad in an external insulation, that's the word I'm looking for, to make those homes more warm and safe for people that live there. I understand that the council has been having a lot of difficulty finding a company that now can do that cladding, and I wonder if one has now been identified, please.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Madden. I'm not quite sure. I think you mean fabric first approach, where we're trying to insulate homes to make sure that people's home can remain warm, and again, to get to the EPCC, probably is the approach you're talking about. Cladding has had its own downfalls because of the new fire regulation. I don't strongly believe that we are still thinking of cladding our properties at all. We do have further programs. We have done lots of retrofit to do with increasing those insulation levels, or making sure we've done solar panels, or we've changed the heating system. But I don't follow that we are keen to get cladding work done. In fact, that's what has given us some problems in terms of fire safety.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do. I think we're talking of cross purposes on cladding. I'm talking about the external insulation, which is like a 4-inch cover around the edge. I had a particular instance, which I will follow up with you later, where a resident was moved into a house where they'd taken down a conservatory, and the council put this insulation around without making them take it down then. So there's a big gap at the back of their house, and they've lived there nearly 2 years now, and I've asked many times when this is going to be resolved, because I'm told by the maintenance team that it's actually worse to have a gap in it than not have it at all. So I was told that the problem was identifying a company that could come and do it, and there were several on the list. So I'm not just talking about mine. There were several on the list of houses that were waiting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think what you're explaining sounds like a casework to me, and I think when it comes to casework, they really vary case to case. I'm very happy for this to be looked into if you send me an email with more details, because it's more of a decision where, again, we want to make sure our properties are warm, safe, and accessible at all time, but then external insulation is an option if required based on the EPC rating or based on if there's a damp and mold incident happening. So again, we need to know more in detail where this is coming from, but I'll be happy to look at it if you send me some information.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Comes to the end of the portfolio questions. Moving on to item 6, the motions. We have 3 motions this evening. We'll begin with motion 6.1, titled Designation. If I could please invite the proposer of the motion, Councillor Adrian England, to formally move the motion. Once this has been moved, I will ask for a seconder, but we might like to open the discussion. Councillor England.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Respectfully, I would like to withdraw my motion. Thank you very much.
So, the procedure. You, the proposer, who's going to be the seconder, and do I have the seconder agreeing to withdraw it?
That would be me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to.
Right, you're the seconder, Councillor Jankowski, and you're withdrawing. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Procedure, is that agreed? Councillor England? It's withdrawn.
Not really, no. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, with permission, some people are asking me if I can provide a reason. All I can say is that I'm a Hertfordshire County Councillor, and I sat through the longest council meeting that I've ever sat through in my life yesterday, and I've come to appreciate the value of brevity.
Thank you. Now we'll move to motion 6.2, titled Major Planning Application Decision. And I invite the proposer of the motion, Councillor Alan Anderson, to formally move the motion. And once this has been moved, I will ask for seconder. Councillor Anderson.
Brevity is the soul of wit, Mayor, as a great playwright once wrote. For the first time ever, the government has, under section 62A of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, taken away a power from Dacorum Borough Council, namely the power to determine major planning applications. The evidence for doing so was 2 years out of date, and whilst council officers challenged the government on how it had acted on the relevant performance indicator and stressed that the council had performed better than the intervention threshold for over a year, at the time, the minority administration of the council could only blame the previous administration and the Development Management Committee. It is resolved, therefore, that instead of waiting 12 months for the next regular review, the council formally asks the new incoming Secretary of State, when he or she is identified, that being Angela Rayner, of course, to take into account the council's performance on major applications for over the last 12 months and therefore to lift the major applications designation. Thank you, Mayor.
Anderson, do you have a seconder?
I second and reserve my right.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Right. All right. For clarity, this proposition before the council for this debate and the decision is that it is resolved that instead of waiting 12 months for the next regular review, the council formally asks the new incoming Secretary of State, when he or she is identified, to take into account the council's performance on major applications for over the last 12 months, and therefore to lift the major applications designation. That is the proposition members will be debating and ultimately voting upon. I now open the debate. I remind members that in accordance with the rules of debate, Each member may speak once on this motion for a maximum of 5 minutes. Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think it's important to make clear for anybody who may be watching that this designation decision relates to major planning application decisions, not to the planning policy making function or the wider workings of the council. It is in that narrow frame. The leader of the quorum has written to the Secretary of State at MHCLG, expressing residents' profound concerns about the government's ongoing erosion and now near removal of a local say in the planning process and developments across our borough. So, might have come to the conclusion, as I said a minute ago, that this debate is basically theatre for full council, really. And indeed, I have come to appreciate brevity, but I will continue for a short while longer. We've had a pretty confusing time of our own here in Dacorum, and I think that residents can be excused for being thoroughly confused, sometimes by the planning decisions which are made, the plans that are put forward, and it all starts to become a difficult thing to follow. So I think it's in that context that we end up in a situation where new councillors who've just been elected in May 2023 are making decisions in a very difficult situation. They are in a committee room, just as they expect to be, but they are not acting as a scrutiny councillors. They're not in a full council meeting. They are in a quasi-judicial planning committee. That is a really difficult thing to do when you're a new councillor. And yet Dacorum has been judged on quite a large cohort, bearing in mind we have all up elections, quite a large cohort of new councillors trying to make decisions. And so it's actually unsurprising that the quality of decision making has improved as we've gone on. I think it's really disappointing that the Secretary of State hasn't recognised that. They've gone strictly on the background and the numbers of our decisions, and it has to be said that the numbers of our decisions are 14.8, and the threshold for this sanction is 10%. So, notwithstanding that our performance for at least a year has been under that, we now need to get to the end. We need our points to fall off the other end. I have been very particular with officers that we should make the point that this council is doing everything it can to bring forward a local plan and to progress plan-led house building in the borough. And it seems that whilst I'm sure they're happy to hear about that, the rules are the rules, and so we are where we are. But fundamentally, we are in a situation where Dacorum has not had a local plan since 2013. And so you can excuse the government for looking at us and saying, well, not only have they not got a local plan, but their decision making isn't that good. They're getting a red card. And that's what happened.
Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Adrian's mentioned already. I think you're all aware, and it was distributed today, that on the 9th of July, I wrote to the then Secretary of State, Steve Reed, on this matter, with a specific request, amongst other requests, because there are quite a few problems with the planning system. But point number 2, that requesting that the planning designation is lifted at the earliest opportunity, so that there is a local say in planning applications. And I think all of us in this chamber want that to happen. I think that is something that we all agree about. I think it's worth noting that we were one of 9 councils, we haven't been singled out alone as Dacorum, that this designation applies to. Officers met with MHCLG once the letter was received. So as a council, we took immediate action to go straight to officials to request that this designation I can't even say it, I'm sorry, I've got a lisp, is lifted, and that the more recent data can be taken into account. We've asked those questions, and the answer is categorically, it is a system that they are applying uniformly. The dates are the dates, and yes, time will roll on and those things will change, but at the moment, that cannot be changed. As I said, I've written to ask that the consideration is given to lifting it, but at the moment I haven't had a reply. It should also be noted that those decisions were a mixture, and they weren't solely decisions by the Development Management Committee, they were also officer decisions. So it was a combination of those decisions, and 2 of them related to SANG applications. And we know that the SANG criteria are relatively new, and that people, not just us, but the inspectors are finding their way through all of that too. So, as I said, I know that we all agree that this designation should be lifted as soon as possible. I hope that developers will take the opportunity to still work with developers will work with our officers to bring forward planning applications. And I think developers are aware that if they go straight to the planning inspector, which obviously is their option as a result of this designation, that they have no right of appeal. So they do only have one shot at that. And obviously we hope that whatever is happening, that they will still work with us in bringing forward these applications. So in summary, as I said, I've already written a letter. I think that is why we have withdrawn our motion. I think we have done what the council requires of us. If you would like, I can forward the Steve Reed letter to Angela Rayner, who now has his job, with a copy to say that we would like it recognised by the new Secretary of State. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, as the leader of this council, and our officers are concerned, and the portfolio is concerned, we have done absolutely everything that we could do to work with officials at MHCLG and to work within the system that we're operating in to represent residents and get this lifted. And I think that we should all get behind the thing that we share in common and not create divisions around our planning process.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've sat on the planning committee for about 6 years or so. I think actually Councillor Symington's probably covered things that I was going to say. So I was just going to put my support behind this motion. I don't really care about the who did what, said what, whose fault it was. It is absolutely ridiculous that the government has come in and that the system allows this process to happen when, as explained, the fall back in statistics was minor and it has got a lot better. But it does sound like if Councillor Symington is saying that she's going to resend the letter, she might perhaps boost it a little bit, given that we've discussed it today and the concerns clearly from the council about this situation, to send it to the new Secretary of State and indeed share any answer that comes, and chase indeed if no answer comes in the near future. So I just wanted to really say that it may well be that we don't need this motion following what Councillor Symington has just said, but if we were to go ahead, I support at least the sentiment of it, and whether it is actually a physical letter, if it is voted on and we do go ahead, or whether it is, I would argue, to be left to the leader of the council to decide how best to deal with it, given that she has already written. But I think it's a valid thing for us to be discussing it today, because it is of concern to me and our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Before I invite the mover to exercise their right to reply, can I confirm that all members who wish to speak had the opportunity to do so? And the seconder had the opportunity to exercise their right to speak if they wish to do so. Are you wishing to speak, sir?
I'm certainly wishing. I spend my life in this chamber wishing. Wishing I was sitting somewhere else. I thank Councillor England for withdrawing his motion. I wish he told me yesterday. I got all these notes about why I think his motion was so wrong and how he's conflated two issues which are not related. I almost got to the point where he wasn't going to mention it tonight, but no, he's gone and done it again. He knows, surely in his position as place portfolio holder, that there is not a link between the local plan process and the designation of this council under special measures. The special measures thing is purely related to performance, and that performance it cannot be related to the local plan process. So, however inaccurately he likes to criticise the Conservative administration for its progress on the local plan, of course of which Liberal Democrats went out of their way to thwart the process when they were in opposition, you know, videos in fields and God knows what else. But I still think that it is, and I welcome the leader's letter, and it is a very good letter, but the bit that we're under discussion this evening is just 2 lines in the leader's letter. The leader's letter is predominantly about housing figures, local plan, national, how the figures are worked out. There is just those 2 lines that say we'd like designation lifted. I think it's important that this council gives its full weight to the leader to write again to the new Secretary of State, specifically on this point of designation, because I agree with what Councillor England said, that, you know, we may have our differences of opinion, it may have happened on his watch, but yeah, I think it is unfair. You know, I think to penalise an organisation 18 months after the period has closed, when it's clear that the performance in the interceding period is well within the target, and that we don't have systemic issues with our performance, and this is, if you like, a blip on a couple of applications, that this is a very heavy-handed approach to the council, and I think it would be right for the leaders to write separately on this particular issue, exercising that we are, you know, unhappy about it, and we feel that, you know, we ought to be released from this designation at the earliest opportunity. Combine this with everything else that's going on in planning, and you know, I sat on the planning committee here 35 years ago. People on that committee wouldn't recognise planning as it is now. Committees and members are so stripped of any real influence over the planning process that the planning committee may as well almost come to the point where you just wind it up and let officers do it, because we are so, I mean, having one hand tied behind your back makes it difficult. Being handcuffed to the chair makes it almost impossible, and we are now in a position where, you know, where you can see, and we all share this, that getting people to even feel that being on a planning committee and making a worthwhile difference is difficult, because you are so constrained by government policy that you feel that you're just not serving your residents in the way you want to. So anything we can do to relieve the restrictions, and we have the motion that follows this, I think we ought to do, and make our strongest terms to government that this process is not fair.
Councillor Anderson, as the mover of the motion, do you wish to exercise your right to reply?
Yes, please.
Hang on. Commissioner, I'm told we had already closed the debate.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I not for the first time tonight, I think I've had some of my words stolen. I too welcome the withdrawal of the first motion. I think members, as the leader has already said, welcome particularly the letter that the leaders of the council sent. We only saw it this morning, but it was an extremely good letter, and that has the universal support of the Chamber, I hope. I too support the work of the Development Management Committee because of the difficulties that Councillor Williams has referred to. I think the statistic that the council's been hauled up on is particularly absurd, because if you talk about percentages of a small number, you start getting ridiculous things happening. So if you have only literally 4 appeals and you've had 1 out of the 4 allowed, that's 25%. That puts you over 10% and you're clobbered. I think that's a particularly absurd statistic and a demonstration of how the statistics are a very bad weakness. And also, as has been said this evening, it is bizarre how we've been hauled up on a performance that dates from 2.5 years ago and is utterly obsolete. I think, as Councillor Williams has said, I think we're going to have to, members on different sides of the chamber are going to have to agree to disagree about the relevance, about the argument of having a local plan. If you look at the decisions that the committee was taking at that time, if you exclude the Sang decisions, A lot of them were large-scale green belt developments, and the arguments focused on the National Planning Policy Framework and the purposes of the Green Belt, almost exclusively. There was nothing relevant to the local plan. I think, as Councillor Williams has said, I think it's important in writing to the Secretary of State, the Council focuses on this one specific area and actually gives background and rationale. And the only thing I ask as a result of this motion is that somehow the Council uses the word please rather than actually demands that it's lifted. I think it does make a difference when writing these letters that the Council was asking. It does drive me to distraction when people asking for things demand them, as if it's somehow their right. In closing, Mayor, I would just like to ask all members of the Chamber to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. That concludes the debate. We will now move to a vote. Now, as it appears that there may not be unanimous agreement, we will proceed to a formal vote. The vote will be conducted electronically using your microphones. Instructions are available at your seats. If you experience any difficulty in casting your vote, please raise your hand and assistance will be provided. To support the motion, vote yes. To oppose the motion, vote no. If you wish to abstain, you may select abstain.
Okay, 39 votes. So we've got 31, just a few.
Right. We have the outcome. There are total votes 39, 34 in favour, 4 against, 1 abstention. The motion has been moved and seconded. No. Right, okay. Right. No, right. Explain what it is, right. The motion has been carried by 34 votes to 4 against and 1 abstention. That's it, okay. Right, moving on. And to a final motion under this agenda, item 6.3, the scheme of delegation for planning applications. I now invite the proposer of the motion, Councillor Alan Anderson, to formally move the motion. And once the motion has been moved, I will ask for a seconder. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Government is nationalising the scheme of delegation which controls the planning applications that are referred to the Development Management Committee. There are many problems with the proposal set to be implemented at the end of October. But in summary, it involves removing councillors from any involvement in household or planning applications, irrespective of the strength of the planning arguments, brackets, Schedule 1 applications. No indications have been given yet, either on whether the change would be retrospective, i.e. apply to existing planning applications already made, or apply only to new applications. It is resolved, therefore, that the Council formally asks the new incoming Prime Minister to consider that the national scheme of delegation proposed runs contrary to the devolution agenda, both in concept and in execution, and should therefore be withdrawn.
Do you have a second?
Second and reserve.
The motion has been moved and seconded. For clarity, the substantive proposition before the Council for debate and decision is that it is resolved that the Council formally asks the new incoming Prime Minister to consider that the national scheme of delegation proposed runs contrary to its devolution agenda, both in concept and in execution, and should therefore be withdrawn. That is the proposition members will be debating and ultimately voting upon. I now open the debate. I remind members that in accordance with the rules of debate, each member may speak once on this motion for a maximum of 5 minutes. Who's first? Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll go first because for a moment it looked like nobody wanted to, and then they all came at once. So I've already spoken a little bit about DMC and how planning decisions get taken and how that is usually a different thing from planning policy. I think that I think of it like a suspension on a car. There has to be, planning can be a bumpy road, and there has to be a way of smoothing out the shocks. And I think that DMC usually is that. It is a credible local say in planning applications. And I think that there are some pretty obvious common sense ways in which the public expects that to be carried out. And it does appear that the national scheme of delegation is probably another way in which the government is looking to remove obstacles from the planning process. I'm not convinced that that is the way that we should be doing things. But as I've said before tonight, the government is the government and this is a council, and there is a difference between the two. And I think our residents need to understand that, which is why I say it so often. So I support this motion. We may as well send Andy a letter because everybody else is doing it about everything else, what you do. So you know, let's make it like that scene in Harry Potter when the owls keep coming in. You know, it's like go away, don't send me any more letters. We're sending another letter from the quorum. Go us.
Councillor Hamill.
Mr. Mayor, we are where we are, not because of the fact that the Labour government wrote the rules that have put us in this position. The rules were laid down in the 1990 Town and Country Planning Act, and that was, if I remember my Conservative Prime Ministers, the last year that Margaret Thatcher led the Conservative administration. And then the special measures were then set out in the Growth and Infrastructure Act, which came into effect on the 1st of October 2013. And 2013, 2010 to 2015 was the time in which the Liberal Democrats decided to get into coalition with the Conservatives. What the Labour government are doing is what they've been allowed to do because of legislation that has been laid down by these two parties. Thank you.
Councillor Friedman.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, thank you for proposing the motion. I am rising in support of the motion, but that said, I'm now going to criticise it. Unlike the member to my right, I'm not being brief. I think the motion very much oversimplifies the process that has led to where we are now. It seems not to mention all of the submissions that have already been made by this council and members of this chamber in all of our various other roles, trying to speak up for local voices. So I think we've all reached out both as borough councillors, as town and parish councillors, as members of our parties, etc. And our parish councils as well have sent submissions in. So while I'm in support of this, I sort of want to add the part that the letter makes mention of all of those local voices, all of those levels, that obviously is consistent with everything else in the borough for us. Thank you.
Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. proposed national scheme of delegation flies in the face of democracy. It stops us representing our constituents as we're elected to do. It represents top-down control, so beloved by the left. In my experience, ward councillors don't call applications into committee frivolously, lightly, or without material planning considerations. Ward councillors have the expertise and experience to know when to call applications, including householder ones, in. We know our wards and we know material planning considerations. Councils are capable of deciding their own schemes of delegation. Recently, the Cornwall Borough Council looked at a new scheme that's more streamlined, that makes for efficient decision making, and that ensures that applications can go through the democratic process. I support this motion because imposing this national scheme of delegation and taking away the ward councillor power of calling for household applications, it goes against devolution, it goes against democracy, it goes against freedom.
Councillor Guest. Sorry, Councillor Symington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I'm going to start by just picking up a few things since I've got the floor here. First of all, I'm very sympathetic to the part of the motion that removes the say of local residents. And I think that we need to hold that really close. And I think that's probably something that we all agree about, that local residents should have a say in determining the development and the housing and the other developments in their local area. I have a major problem with you linking it to the devolution agenda. Devolution is not about transferring powers down to residents. It's about the transfer of powers between parliaments and governments. It's not about this. I understand that you need a hook, but that's not a relevant one. Which then brings me on to your earlier claim that the local plan isn't relevant. The local plan is relevant because if a local plan is in place, there wouldn't have been some of the challenges through appeals to decisions that have been overturned by development management. So it is irrelevant. Councillor Anderson, I appreciate you probably didn't actually read my letter, but to pick up on your point about not demanding but asking, if you reread my letter, it's clear that I say I write to request. And I absolutely agree with you, but that is what's already been done. You mentioned about, in your motion, you also mentioned about whether it's retrospective. Now, there's been no other legislation that's applied retrospectively, and the designation that we've just got is applied only to things, applications going forward. So I think it's safe to assume that it won't be retrospectively applied. But I understand why you want to maybe to evoke that, but I don't think that's the relevant part of all of this. Councillor Guest, I have a bit of a problem. I'm not sure we've been sitting in the same, I've only recently joined the Development Management Committee meetings, but I'm not sure we're sitting in the same ones when you claim that ward councillors do not call in planning applications frivolously. I'll leave that with my colleagues. I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Williams, that the planning process has changed. Development Management Committee meetings are barely recognisable. I think the really sad thing is, and I absolutely believe that local people, that we should be representing local residents and that we should have a say. But the real crux of this is even if we have that say, so many of basically the legs of the table that sit on have all been kicked away from underneath us. All those protections that were in place are being removed one by one. So, as I said, I support the essence of this motion, which is that we as local representatives should be able to represent our residents. I have a little bit of a problem with some of the what you've put it on in terms of devolution, but I think it also needs to be seen in the context of the wider planning environment that we're sitting in, whereby, as I said, so many things are being taken away from us. And, for example, the introduction of Greenbelt, the proposed introduction of being able to build near railway stations, which we know threatens really quite a number of areas in our, communities in our area. I've also mentioned, and I'm just going to highlight some of the other things I've already mentioned to the government, which I think are really important. I want to highlight that I have asked that the requirement to produce a local plan is delayed, the new local plan, until the current local plan is completed. I do think it's really relevant that the government keeps revising the local housing needs formula and the assessment, because to keep putting those numbers up makes it more and more difficult for us to deliver. So, as I said, I'm happy with the essence of this motion and the substance that councillors should represent local residents, and to that extent I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple of points. I was a civil servant for over 20 years, so I do understand a little bit about how central government works. I'm a little bit concerned that we're considering writing to the PM on this one narrow issue, however important this issue is. If we were to write to the Prime Minister, I'd be looking at, we'd probably only got one chance, if it ever got in front of him at all, and I'd be wanting us to write on strategic issues about how the whole government approach on several policy areas, how we see that all coming together to help the residents of Dacorum. I think we look a bit daft writing to him on this one issue. Having said that, this issue is important, and it would be much more appropriate, I think, to go to the Secretary of State for Housing. If we've already had this discussion previously, the Leader of the Council has got a mandate from the Council to write to the Secretary of State for Housing, Angela Rayner, so that's where I would suggest. I just have a little bit concerned about writing to a brand new Prime Minister who's got a million things on his plate and trying to bring this to his attention. It just seems a bit of a waste of our time. I'm not against writing to him, but I think there's a lot more strategic and bigger and holistic messages that we could show to say how brilliant the places where we live, and if the policies that he's considering implementing, particularly at a local level, and how that can make a huge change to our residents. That would make far more sense to me, writing to the Prime Minister. But if we are to go ahead and write to the government, then I would suggest we write to the appropriate minister for this area, and to whoever that new cabinet member is, or whoever we were to write to. Angela Rayner, she's well versed, indeed, from where she comes from, and the reason she was appointed, she's well versed in her new boss's drive for greater say at a local level, and greater, if devolution isn't quite the right word, but greater devolution of power and say across the country, not just centralised in London. Housing infrastructure, business rates, sustainable, affordable housing, etc. I could go on. So thank you very much. That's just really what I wanted to say. Just a little bit of advice from where I'm sitting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. It sounds as if you're almost on the point of tabling an amendment to this motion. You might like to consider that.
I don't know. I think there's this, but not for writing now. I think it would be something that needs a lot of careful attention. But I could maybe bring it back in the autumn and write a motion ourselves if we wanted to do that. But I mean, indeed, I'd be expecting you wouldn't need a motion. I'd be hoping that the Leader of the Council would already be talking across party and across with all of the councillors and with officers on what we would like to see from this new potential, which could be very positive for local areas from the new government. But as I say, he's literally got the keys to number 10, and I'm not sure that this would even get past his officials onto his desk. Thank you.
Councillor Joris. And then Councillor Allen.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to pick up a couple of words that Councillor Friedman strained that he went along a little bit with regard to parish councils. And I think that there's an awful lot of parish councils out there who consider very carefully planning applications for the benefit of the area that they represent. They are unpaid, I understand that, and they do their work with diligence and with good grace. And what I think this action by the government, if it were to be enacted fully, would be something that would remove a great deal of the emphasis on parish councils, to the extent, and I can imagine some parish councils saying, why are we here? What are we here for? It's just to look after, and it's important that they do, look after recreation fields and other elements like that. But planning and maintaining the fabric and the style of the village and the parish that they represent is very important. And I think that we mustn't forget the role that parish councils have and the influence that they need to have in terms of determining planning applications.
Councillor Allen.
In view of Councillor Symington's very sensible and balanced approach in what she said about the essence of this motion being sound, but its mechanism being maybe clumsy, I think I'd like to pick up on Councillor Hobson's really excellent. I very much value her long-standing professional experience in this field, and I think waiting until the autumn is too late. We are going to be voting on a motion tonight, and I think this motion is, as Councillor Symington and Councillor Hobson have pointed out, is clumsy and needs either more work and to come back, or an amendment to readdress it towards the Secretary of State rather than the Prime Minister, and consider withdrawing the clause that links it to the local plan, as Councillor Symington. Sorry? No. Okay, well, can we please consider readdressing this? As Councillor Hobson has said, we do not want to look foolish in Downing Street. We need to use what goodwill we may have as a council with the leader of our country with great caution, and I propose that we readdress this and amend this motion.
Right. Before we move on, Councillor Anderson, would you like to consider what has just been said, and would you be prepared to amend the direction of travel on this particular motion?
If you're allowing me to reply twice, Mayor. Sorry, stand up, Catherine. If you allow me to reply twice, there was a very specific reasoning why I picked out the PM. And I can come back to that under the right of reply.
Right. It looks as if we're going on a different tack here.
Mr. Mayor, do you need a seconder for the amendment?
One moment. Let's make sure we know what the amendment is, and then we'll see whether we're going to propose it and a seconder. Okay? Thank you. You've indicated you wish to propose an amendment to the motion. I'll now ask you to please state your amendment clearly and in full for the meeting. And as the proposer of the amendment, you may speak to your amendment for up to 5 minutes. As the rules of debate do not provide a right of reply for the proposer of an amendment, this is your only opportunity to address council on your amendment.
The proposed amendment is simply to withdraw the addressee being the Prime Minister and make it the Secretary of State.
Do you have a second for that?
I would like to second that, thank you.
A second of the amendment. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your speech until later in the debate?
I want to reserve my rights to speak later.
Thank you. Right. So the amendment has been moved and seconded. For clarity, we will now suspend debate on the substantive motion and consider the proposed amendment only. Members should confine their remarks to the amendment currently before council. I remind members that each member may speak once on the amendment for a maximum of 5 minutes. Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I said enough in response to Councillor Hobson's very valuable input and highlighting Councillor Symington's points from earlier for the very sound reasons for this amendment, and so I commend it to the Council.
Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes funny things happen in debates, and reflecting on that image from Harry Potter, I reflect on that, and I think it does make a lot more sense, bearing in mind Councillor Hobson's sage advice that we direct this letter to somebody who's going to be properly interested and got the bandwidth to deal with it.
Thank you. Right. Right, we're down to here, I think. Moved to secondary, right? We are, right, okay. Right, before I invite the mover of the original motion to exercise their right of reply to the amendment, can I confirm that all members who wish to speak on the amendment have done so? Right. Right. The seconder of the amendment has... Do you wish to exercise your right to speak?
Is Councillor Anderson not speaking then?
He's going to speak at the end.
I would like to keep my right for the end.
This is your final
No, this is on the amendment only. This is the amendment.
Okay, I'm going to give it a pass for now.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Councillor Anderson, as the mover of the original motion, do you wish to exercise your right to reply to the debate on the amendment?
Yes, Mayor. If the council so wishes to change who the appeal is addressed to, then fine. I don't have a personal strict question over that, but I am going to ask that it still put to the vote for the simple reason that I would actually have to agree to disagree with the interpretations of what devolution means. Devolution quite clearly is the passing of powers further down, closer to the public. It's not just powers being passed between institutions. It is actually empowering the public to have a greater say in their lives. And the reason why I picked the Prime Minister, normally I would have picked the Secretary of State. Believe you me, that's what I would have normally have picked. But because the Prime Minister has made such a song and dance about devolution being his number one thing, I just thought this was a classic example of where one would actually want to tackle him on that specific issue. And the other point, bear in mind, I do appreciate the Prime Minister gets thousands of letters and everything, or owls or whatever. But it would actually probably, they might actually be quite surprised that someone actually, a council sticking specifically to one point. It would say that would actually be a hook in that. But as I've said already, if council wants to change it to Secretary of State, fine. But I don't think that will have as much an effect. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Anderson, the debate is closed.
Yes.
The debate on the amendment is closed. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's about that aspect of it. And
no,
sorry?
Please sit down. We're moving on to something else for the moment. Trying to clarify.
Closing the debate.
We're taking the vote on the amendment, basically. Right. We're now voting on the amendment, right? And the amendment says that we are withdrawing the existing motion and substituting the council formally ask the new incoming Secretary of State to consider that the national scheme of delegation proposed runs contrary to the devolution agenda, both in concept and in execution, and should therefore be withdrawn. And I think that's what the word should be, okay? voting effectively on the amended motion. If that is carried, then that becomes the carried motion, right? We're now voting on the amendment. This will be conducted electronically using your microphones. Instructions are available at your seats. If you experience any difficulty in casting your vote, please raise your hand and assistance will be provided. To agree the amendment, vote yes. To oppose the amendment, vote no. To wish to abstain, select abstain. So we're voting for the amendment. So far, we've got 35 votes up. There should be 39. That's 36 so far. Who's having difficulty?
Is anyone having problems? If you have voted, one of the three buttons at the bottom of your screen will have a colour. If it doesn't,
Right, we're 38 now. Who's missing?
You can close it. There's a
Right. I'm advised I can close this. The amendment has been carried by the looks of it. 4 in favour of the amendment, 15 against, and abstentions are 6, and there's obviously 1 vote missing. But the amendment is carried. So we're writing to the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Okay?
You've already read that bit out, so I think it'll be okay.
Okay.
Yep. So we can now return to the substantive.
Right. We will now return to debate on the amended substantive motion.
Right, so if anyone...
Press on.
So it's now, if anybody wants to debate the
Right.
this new substantive amended motion.
Right. We will now return to a debate on the substantive motion as amended. Right. Does any member wish to speak?
Okay, so before you invite the mover to exercise their final right, you just want to check.
Oh, Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and that's not just to say that I'm slightly confused by this whole process. I have to say that I am delighted to hear my Conservative colleagues calling into question a piece of legislation passed by a Conservative government. I certainly would like to call into question more than just this one. I'd like to reiterate that the Labour Group fully supports democracy at a local level. However, we do not believe the wording of this motion reflects the views of our residents, and therefore we will not be supporting it.
Thank you. Well, right. Councillor Mitchell, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please, thank you. So I'd just like to say that I feel that the motion is unnecessary and duplicitous of the previous motion, and that actually the objective of this motion has already been acted upon by the Leader of the Council in the letter that she wrote. I believe this is more about gaining political brownie points than the outcome that wants to be achieved.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I congratulate my good friend Peter Hamill there, waking up at the wrong moment. This piece of legislation to change the scheme of delegation is not from the 1990 Act passed by the Conservatives. It's not Conservative legislation. It's not under 62A of that Act. It is legislation proposed by Angela Rayner when she was Secretary of State the first time round. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't want to send this to the Secretary, amend it now that we know that the same Secretary of State who proposed this change to the scheme is the same Secretary of State we're now going to write to asking us to withdraw it. It's unlikely to be very effective, so I think it would have been better off sending it to the Prime Minister. So I'm afraid the 3 Labour contributions that suggest we're using a piece of Conservative legislation from the 1990s is inaccurate. This is a new piece of legislation made by the Secretary of State at the time and the Secretary of State now. We propose this motion because, as I said earlier in the debate on delegation, that the autonomy of planning committees has continue to be eroded. There's no doubt the central government sees planning committees and the development industry to a degree, sees planning committees of local councillors as a bar to development, despite the fact there are probably 1 million homes consented in this country through the planning process that have not been built. So I can't see how the planning process is a bar to development when you have so many permissions that have not been implemented. And this is micromanaging the development control process. I mean, it's not said here, but they're even saying the Development Management Committee can't have more than 13 members. Do we need a government policy that dictates how many members of a council can serve on a planning committee? Should we be micromanaged to that degree? It's ridiculous. And residents already feel that they don't have much of a voice in the planning process, and now our powers to refer things to the committee, or even the committee to be able to consider certain applications, are being further curtailed. It's a step, and there have been several steps in the planning process that are too far, but this is another one where the public's ability to influence the process is being taken away at a time when many of our residents feel that we're being forced to accept far more development than the borough and the region and the area can take, and we're getting little and less say in how it's done. And the planning councillors and the planning committees are being seen as some sort of villain in the process, and it's far from the truth. We try to represent our residents and come to fair decisions. We grant lots of planning permissions, and there are thousands of homes across Dacorum and across wider Hertfordshire that are consented and not yet built. The planning process is not the issue, and for us to be punished and our residents to be further removed from the process is wrong, and we need to ask the Secretary of State. I feel now that it's going to fall on deaf ears, because I say this is the Secretary of State who thought this was a good idea in the first place. She's hardly likely to say, oh, I made a mistake, I'm going to take it back. But I think we ought to, because it's the only weapon we've got to try and reverse this process of further muting our ability. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Matton.
Sorry, on the second, I don't think it didn't speak.
Oh. Can I? It's a shame, really, that that Councillor Williams hadn't said that. I appreciate why and the timing and everything, but before the amendment was voted on, because that might have made it more
Mr. Mayor,
clear.
point of order. I'm really struggling to hear because there's a lot of noise from my right. So could you please help with that? I appreciate that. Thank you.
Carry on.
In the DMC meeting recently, we, and it's a shame that because it was at the end of the DMC meeting, not all the councillors were there, but we had a presentation on this, and it basically is taking away, as ward councillors, our right to call things in and have a delegated process to choose, to decide on an application. So we won't be able to look at household applications at DMC anymore. And it's really eroding the work of the Development Management Committee. So I feel very strongly about this one.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Anyone else wants to speak?
Right. Does anybody else wish to speak before we do that? Anybody else? No? Okay. Councillor Anderson, as mover of the motion, do you wish to exercise your right to reply?
Yes, as briefly as I can, Mayor, this time of evening. One of the main reasons why I brought this motion to council, other than the obvious concern about members being cut out of the system and the public having a less say in planning decisions, was the experience that Councillor Johnson and I had in our ward at a particular address, 36 Bellham Road. It was only a full householder application, the type that are being specifically removed from councillors' involvement. But it was a big issue because it involved a large amount of development on a 2-up, 2-down semi where there was no parking in the street whatsoever. There was a big debate in the committee. It went on for an hour. The officer's recommendation was overturned and it went to appeal. But that is a classic example of a decision where it would have been, under this scheme, would be taken by an officer and the public and the councillors would have no involvement in it whatsoever. So it was a classic case where there were strong planning arguments and all of that would have been swept away. To build on Councillor Williams's response to the accusations about legislation, my legal advisor in the audience has advised me that it was actually the Labour government passed the Planning and Infrastructure Act 2025 last year, which has enabled them to do this. The motion was oversimplified. Believe you me, there were 5 or 6 different versions of it, and the first one ran for 4 pages. I tried to really brevity being the soul of wit again, I was really trying to stick to the point. Getting off the point for a moment, but in response, this is, again, has nothing to do with the local plan, whether the council has a local plan or not. And that's beginning to sound like a broken record, I have to say. If the proposal is not retrospective, I welcome that because there are a number of live applications I'm aware of which are going on forever. And I do have a fear that because they involve 10 houses or less, or they aren't major applications, that they could be moved purely under delegated decision. And I am really quite concerned about that. So I welcome the claims that it couldn't be retrospective, but I remain very, very suspicious and worried about that particular element, which is why I'm actually making inquiries nationally, regularly on the subject. This is not political point scoring. This is a very genuine attempt to prevent the centralisation of planning powers. And as Councillor Williams has so eloquently said, the planning system is not the problem as to why not enough houses are being built in this country. And this is yet another example of a very blinkered approach to find the wrong solution to the wrong problem. And it does not help anybody. And I commend the motion as amended, and I hope that the majority of members can support it. Thank you.
Right. That concludes the debate. We will now move to a vote. Right. Okay, right. As it appears there may not be unanimous agreement, we will proceed to a formal vote. Let me just read out what the amended vote motion sounds like. The Council formally asks the new incoming Secretary of State to consider that the national scheme of delegation proposed runs contrary to the devolution agenda, both in concept and in execution, and should therefore be withdrawn. So that's the motion. The vote will be conducted electronically using your microphones. Instructions are available at your seats, and if you experience any difficulty in casting your vote, please raise your hand and assistance will be provided. Do I need to read the rest out? To support the motion, vote yes. Opposed, vote no. If you wish to, you may select abstain. I'll hand them over to Democratic Services to conduct the vote. Abstain. "38 votes so far. We've lost one somewhere. I think the motion's carried.
Could you just read out the numbers?
Right. Those in favour, look, gone.
I'm so sorry. Do bear with us. 32, 4 and 2.
32, 4 against and 2 abstentions. Right. Sure.
Item 7.
Right, we're moving on to item 7. This is as bad as a DMC meeting. Thank you, Council of England. Moving to agenda item 7, business from the last council meeting. All updates are provided in the action point list published under agenda item 7. Are these agreed as noted? Councillor Samington.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to provide a verbal response to Councillor Douris as per the action plan from the last meeting. Councillor Douris, you asked about some metal, I'm going to say that metal, opponent insignia for Freeman of Decorum. I've actually had other requests, not via full council. Other people approach me to ask these things in a less formal way. But I know that I said that I would discuss it with the group leaders and provide a verbal response at full council. I discussed it with the group leaders, and the other group leaders are in favour, in principle, of the idea. I have, however, not provided them, because at the time the discussion took place, I didn't have the costs. I do have the costs, and I think that it would be best if I refer back to the group leaders before we proceed. So the answer is, in principle, it's a good idea. In practicality, I think it should be agreed because, in my opinion, the costs are higher than I might have anticipated, and certainly higher than were discussed, well, no costs were discussed at the point the group leaders met. So I'm going to suggest that the group leaders meet again and that you are provided with a written response after that. And if it proceeds, then obviously then it will be proceeding, and if not, then I'll bring it back to the next full council meeting.
Are these agreed as noted? Thank you. Agenda item 8, Cabinet referrals. Agenda item 8, I invite the Leader of the Council to introduce the referrals from Cabinet.
Thank you. So I'll start with the first one, CA/59/26, Community Governance Review. I move the recommendations as set out under item 8.1 of the agenda.
Do you have a seconder?
I would like to second that.
Agreed. Thank you. Item 8.2, CA6326, Treasury Management Outturn and Performance Indicators 2025-2026. I move that the recommendations are set out under item 8.2 of the agenda.
I second, thank you.
Agreed. Item 8.3, CA6826, the Elms Cladding Remediation Project is a Part 2 item. I move the recommendations as set out under item 8.3 of the agenda.
Do you have a seconder?
I second that as well.
Thank you. Agenda item 9, Scrutiny Committee referrals. Are there any? There are none, so moving on. Item 10, referral from Licensing, Health and Safety Enforcement Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the recommendations as set out under item 10 of the agenda.
Do you have a seconder?
I second it. Thank you.
Agreed. Right, thank you. Agenda item 11, outside organisations. I invite Councillor Sally Symington to introduce the appointment to outside organisations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The revised list of appointments is included in the agenda pack, and I'd like to highlight the following changes. Councillor Simidiani is to be appointed as the representative for the Citizens Advice Bureau. Councillor Brian Patterson is to be appointed as the representative for Tring Community Association. The Decorum Women's Aid Management Committee no longer exists and can be removed from the list. If anyone would like to nominate themselves for any of the vacant roles, please do get in touch outside of the meeting.
Are members happy to agree? Thank you. Right, agenda item 12, changes to committee membership. Could I please ask the group leaders if there are any changes to note?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Liberal Democrats would like to make the following changes to committee places. Councillor Hardy to replace Councillor Gale on Strategic Planning and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Hardy to replace Councillor McAreevy on Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I would also like to advise that Councillor Bristow will be taking up the independent member vacancy at Development Management Committee. That's following the the by-election, of which Tony Cox was the previous member of that committee.
Thank you. Councillor Williams? Nothing? Right, okay. Right. Councillor Mitchell, any changes?
No, no changes.
Right, thank you. Right. Just being inclusive. Are members happy to agree to those changes? Agree. Thank you. Good. Changes to committee dates? There are none. And that concludes the business of this evening's meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.